बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अस्सलाम वालेकुम स्टूडेंट्स। आज प्रैक्टिकल 2 चैप्टर 2 का लेक्चर नंबर 2 जो है मैं आपके साथ शेयर कर रही हूँ। एंड दैट चैप्टर नेम इज़ डायरेक्शंस। ठीक है, तो हमने कहा था कि डायरेक्शंस जो हैं वो बेसिकली आर वेरी यूज़फुल टू फाइंड आउट द लोकेशन ऑफ एनी प्लेस। और उसमें जो है हमने डायरेक्शन, बेसिक डायरेक्शंस एंड फर्दर सब डिवीजन ऑफ डायरेक्शंस वी हैव डन, and we were on the topic of finding out the true north. And as we have done, there are 3 types of north, and among those 3 types, the true north is very essential, is very important, and we are going to find it out according to the axis. And as we are on the surface of the earth, so as we are on the surface of the earth, and according to the surface of the earth, there are 2 main axes. The one take a start from the equator towards the northern hemisphere. So that's why that's the reason we will discuss to find out the true north, firstly in the northern hemisphere, and secondly in the southern hemisphere. So let's start. To find out the true north in the northern hemisphere, there are number of methods which were mentioned in the previous lecture, and one of the most important and easy method is through sun. So this is the method to find out the true north. Okay, with the help of sun, this method is very easy and is very basic method, because everybody knows according to the direction how can we find it out the other directions as well. So as the sun rises, and everybody knows the sun always rises in the eastern direction, and once to stand up towards the east direction, you can easily find out the other direction, that is obviously the west, which will be at your back. And with reference to the east and west, we can state the north of your place will be in the left side, and south side it will be your right. This method is very easy once you get to know where actually the sun is, from where the sun is rising. You can easily make the calculation where the west, east, and where the west, north, and south will be located. But this technique, this easiest method, is not useful for those countries, those places, and those areas where sun does not always shine. ठीक है, तो डेली बेसिस पे जहाँ पे सूरज नहीं निकल रहा, this method is not practicable. Okay, so this is the second method to find out the true north, and this method is named as by stick and its shadow stick method, commonly it is known as. And this is very important and very accurate method to find out the north. In this method, a stick is used which casts a shadow. Firstly, we need to place a stick in the ground in the morning, okay, and before noon the stick start to cast its shadow in the ground. Okay, I repeat, firstly, what do we need to do? We need to place a stick in the ground, and the time period will be early in the morning. But before noon, like from 11 to 12 p.m., the stick start to cast its shadow on the ground. You need to mark that point and draw a circumference around that point, which will make a circle. And then again you will start wait for another time period to reach, that obviously will be afternoon, when stick again start to cast a shadow, but now the shadow will be in a different direction. Okay, so what's the reason, what we have like observed in this method? Firstly, when we have placed a stick in the ground and the time period was noon, the time period when sun was completely or actually at the right angle of that stick, and then it was start to cast a shadow, and we have marked that point. If we mark that point, that will be the first point, which could be taken as like the east direction. And the after noon, when again the sticks start to cast a shadow but in a different direction, the direction would be the western side. So in this manner, once we get to know where the east or the west are present, so easily we can find it out the northern or the southern hemisphere. So as I have earlier said, this method is very accurate to determine the true north, but the problem is that this method is very time consuming. As we have seen, we need to wait for the noon, we need to wait for the time period when it reaches to afternoon. So a whole day is required to calculate or to know the true north. So this method is accurate, but number of like errors could be done, or the human error, if somebody is not making the or potentially pointing or okay. Now there is a third method to determine the true north, and this method is known as through watch, by watch. And this is very easy method to determine north by using the watch. What do we need to do in this method? We need to place our wrist watch towards the sun horizontally, and once we placed our wrist watch towards the sun, we need to direct the angle formed in between sun and watch. ठीक है, sun और watch के दरमियान जो एंगल बन रहा होगा उस लाइन को हमने मार्क कर लेना है, and then we need to join that line और एंगल with 12 o'clock. ठीक है, रिस्ट वॉच पे जहाँ पे भी 12 o'clock लिखा हुआ होगा हम वहाँ पे उस लाइन को ज्वाइन कर देंगे. ठीक है, एंड देन this angle will be helpful to find out the north in a way like we will bisect that angle. ठीक है, हम उस एंगल को दो हिस्सों में डिवाइड करेंगे, and when we extend that angle towards the opposite direction, that will point towards north. ठीक है, this is very easy method, but obviously not an exact method and accurate method, so not practicable in a very extensive way, and this method is very easy to handle. ठीक है, so let's move on towards the fourth method by the polar star. Okay, to determine the true north in the northern hemisphere, another method, the fourth method, is by polar star. This method is very basically extensively and very oftenly used in the olden time period when there was a need to find out the true north. Okay, what do we need to do in this method? This method is basically attached with the polar star, and everybody knows the polar stars or every star just appear at the night time period. So this method is just fixed with the night and not can be used in the daytime. So this is one of the drawback of this method to use. And this method is basically one of the application is like this method was used by the sailors in the olden time period to guide the in the right direction. Okay, the methodology of this method is basically as everybody knows, in the sky there is a cluster of stars which looks like a great bear. Okay, this is basically apparently how does it look like, but this method is also has some limitation in terms of the specific month. Okay, the specific months are like it is based on the observation and the clarification and the clarity of the clouds, it depends. So basically the months like February to onward, like March or April, these are the months when anybody can see the cluster of star which looks like have a resemblance with the great bear. Okay, once you take a look on the cluster of the star, there must be a very brighter star, that brighter star with two pointer star also present over there. That brighter star will be the polar star or the north star. Once you find out that north star or the polar star, it will be very easy to find out the true north, because it is based on the observation that that polar star or north star is basically the pointing area towards the north. ठीक है, यानी जब कभी भी पोलर स्टार और नॉर्थ स्टार देखा गया है तो उसके बिल्कुल ऊपर एग्जैक्ट नॉर्थ इज लोकेटेड, एंड दैट्स द रीज़न व्हाई डू वी कॉल this star, this brighter star, as a polar star or the north star. So this is the fourth method to determine the north. Okay, this is the last method to determine the north in the northern hemisphere, and this is again a very easy but a technical method in a way. Like in this method we need to know firstly the magnetic north. And what is magnetic north? Magnetic north is a type of north which can easily be known by using the magnetic compass. So firstly we should have the magnetic compass, and then magnetic compass will you just start using it, that the needle will quickly point out where actually the north is located. And then the area where do we need to find out the true north? The local declination we should know. And after finding out the local declination and the magnetic north, we can easily find out the true north by getting the value subtracted. So these are the ways we have done that how can we find out the true. So these are the 5 ways to determine the true north. Okay, this is the first diagram जो कि आप लोग ड्रॉ करेंगे by the sun. ठीक है, ये इतनी नीट नहीं है लेकिन आपने इसको बहुत अच्छे तरीके से नीटली लिखना है. ठीक है. Okay girls, this is like your first diagram which you will draw after drawing the directions. ठीक है, in the method. So by the sun, in this method you will draw this diagram. This diagram is not drawn very neatly, but you will draw it very neatly and very clearly. Okay, now there is a second diagram by stick and its shadow method, and this is the diagram. You will make a circle and pointing out the direction north, south, east, west before noon and afternoon. In the method of by the watch, you will draw this diagram, and a very easy diagram. You will draw a watch here, and for the polar star, this is the required diagram. This is the diagram to find out the magnetic north, and you can see here one line indicating the true north is here, and the second one is magnetic north, and in between of these two north there is a declination difference. Okay, so this is basically the diagram which you will draw in front of the magnetic north. So these are the diagrams you will draw in this practical, and then we will move on towards the southern hemisphere and different methods to determine the true north over there. Okay, ji, Allah.